Good evening, all. Is anyone here who is brand new to Zen practice? Then you can teach us all, because the rest of us think we have it figured out. What do you have for us?
A quiet mind is a peaceful heart.
There you go. I won't ask you to follow that. She put pressure on you. Yeah. So welcome for those who are here for the first time. Not much more I can say other than that, but we're going to sit for a little bit. And as far as sitting within this practice, it's really just a matter of being present with yourself. And whatever that means is what that means. Posture-wise, if you are on a cushion, often it helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a chair or bench, however you're seated, you do want to sit upright. You're definitely trying to stay awake, so you're not trying to hunch in or slouch. You want to sit up straight. Just imagine there's a string just kind of gently pulling your head up. Your hands, it can be on the knees, or if you put one hand in the other, you can put your thumbs together like this. Place them in your lap. It's a good point of reference to have your thumbs touching together. What you'll notice with that posture is as you start to kind of doze off or maybe mind wanders, the thumbs will come apart or press together too hard. So keeping the thumbs just gently touching is a nice moment of awareness. With this practice, the eyes will be open. So you'll gaze off the edge of the nose down at a spot in front of you. So where you are in the chairs there, you'd be looking probably at about the lower part of the back of the chair. And you're just going to hold your attention there. You're going to work on staying still if possible. If you need to move, just move slightly. Return to stillness. The practice will be silent, so I won't be guiding you at all. You're just going to sit, observe the mind as it wanders. You'll come back to breath. The mind will wander off again, recognize it's wandering, and come back to the breath. Start to move if you'd like. Maybe the legs, the hands, the arms. So the very first teaching where Zen is a Japanese word, Chinese is Chan, comes from the word jhana, which is knowledge or gnosis. And it goes back to the time of the Buddha, where he simply held up a flower. And it said at that moment, one of his disciples, Mahakashyapa, they say there was a mind-to-mind transmission from the Buddha to Mahakashyapa. No words, no discourse, no discussion, no descriptions, no questions, no answers. Just a flower. And for me, anytime I look at any practice within Buddhism, and for me, the Zen practice has from day one always been my practice. But it's always looking at where does it come from? What's the beginning of the teachings? And when I think about that practice with just the flower, in the flower is everything. I mean, literally everything. You got the sun and the earth and the water, and the act of taking the flower. You also have a beautiful flower, and then the flower dies. And then we think, oh no, the flower died, but it just continues to cycle. And it's just like us. I mean, we are that flower. And the flower is us, and that's it. And can we sit with, I used to do this practice years ago, but can we just sit with the flower and just observe the flower? And when we see a flower, can we recognize that in its beauty is what we would consider the beautiful? You know, if you go to Sprouts across the street to buy flowers, you think they have dead ones there for sale, right? Probably not. We want the beautiful one. We spend a bunch of money for the beautiful flower. And then what happens to the beautiful flower? It dies. We throw it away. We buy more beautiful flowers. Because our mind thinks that beauty is just one way. Why is the death of the flower any less beautiful than what we consider the birth or the beauty of the flower? There's no difference. But for me, what I learned from this teaching and this practice is really beyond just the flower, but with everything. Everything in our lives. Everyone in our lives. That when we see something, can we just see it for its entirety? Or do we just see it for exactly how we want it, how we want to use it, what we want to take from it, what we want to get from it? Because that's where we spend a lot of our lives. Even in the act of like buying flowers. You buy flowers for someone and you give them to them, and what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for when you give someone flowers? Thanks, some reaction. Right? But in that gift of the flower, it should just be about the gift of the flower, and that's all. No expectations of anything in return whatsoever. And so much of our lives is not that. So much of our lives is in this kind of give and take and expectations and cravings and desires and wants and all these things that we spend all day long just wrapped up in. If they sold dead flowers, it'd be cheaper too, probably. And then with the money we save from dead flowers, we could go feed people who are hungry, you know. I'll just open a floral shop that sells nothing but dead flowers. I have a couple very dear friends who are florists. They wouldn't like that teaching. But try to, even just through the rest of this evening, as you leave here and head off to wherever you head off to next, just try to see things. And when you look at something or you look at someone, try to see all of it. Because if you can do that, it'll change every dynamic, every relationship that you have with any person or thing or place. You understand that there's a whole past to where that person came from that you don't know. And there's a whole future to that person that you don't know. Any grudges, any anger, any resentments, anything that we're holding on to, anything that we're carrying is very limited to our interaction. You ever been angry at somebody? Right? Just constant. And when we're in that moment of being angry with someone, whether it's a stranger, a colleague, right, someone we've known for 20 years, whatever it is, when we're angry in that moment, we're very tied to what that exchange is about. And we're not very often thinking about what was that person's life like yesterday, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. What happened to them this morning? What happened to them when they were 8? We're just thinking, how did I feel from what they did to me? But if we see just the endless continuation of consciousness, the endless cycle, we recognize that these are just people in our lives for a very brief moment of time, even if it's 50 years. It's just like a blip. And when we can see the endless cycle of everyone, then there's no need to hold on to any sort of anger, resentment, grudges. The pride can fall away, the ego can fall away. We're just allowed to sit, just be present with the flower. So, any thoughts on that before we sit again? Or anything for that matter?
Gotta water that flower.
Say again?
Gotta water that.
You gotta water the flower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take care of it, right? For sure. Yeah, just because we know it's gonna die anyways doesn't mean we shouldn't take care of it while it's alive, You don't water it, it dies quicker.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
There's this haiku that I like. It goes, "E, why are you looking at me? I'm not a flower."
That's great.
It's also with the dead flower, you could also use it to grow a new flower. It's compost, everything that's regenerated.
Yeah.
Nothing is lost. It's the same thing with the chaos in your mind and the chaos in who you've been. You reuse it.
For sure. Absolutely. Other thoughts or anything on that?
Flower power.
Flower power. There you go. Wasn't that a kid's bicycle? Weren't there flower power bicycles back in the 80s?
I had a slightly different thought as I've been meditating, not necessarily tonight, is, thoughts that come in and out of your mind, and they're transient. They just come and go, they come and go, they come and go. But the breath is constant. The breath is like, you're always breathing.
Yes.
And it was really satisfying to use that as a way to be in the zazen, in the moment of the.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of the teachings around, Suzuki Roshi and others will talk about the thoughts just being the swinging doors, let them come and go, don't serve them tea, right? Just let them pass. And but the breath, and for those who are maybe newer to this practice, that's what's there. And there's a teaching from Zen Master Dogen, and the book I love It's called beyond thinking. And in essence, the teachings is exactly that, that when the body and mind fall away, what you're left with is the sensation of breath. And that's all truly that we are, if we are anything. It's just our breath. Everything else is just an illusion, a story, some clinging, some attachment, some idea. But breath is just there. And ironically enough, it's also the most important thing. Because if we don't have breath, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, you know.
There's this quote from 20th century abstract artist Agnes Martin. She said, I used to meditate until I learned how to stop thinking.
Yeah, that's great. What's her, Agnes Martin?
Yeah, I mean, really big abstract. She was
Yeah.
living in
Yeah.
the desert.
I used to meditate until I stopped thinking.
I learned to stop thinking. I think it
Until I
was.
learned to stop thinking. That's great. Anything else before we sit? All right. So again, just finding a position that's comfortable. Just sitting up straight, relaxing the shoulders. So this practice really is just an observation of present moment as it arises. Zen practice, meditation practice, that's what it is. It's observing life as it occurs and not wrestling with it, which is what we're often doing. So much of our days can be just a struggle, a fight, trying to argue or fix, change, correct. It's so much of our days, the little things. And some of them are necessary, right? This practice is not about just sitting back and doing nothing. It's very much engaging in the world. But when we engage in the world, can we engage in the world without these heavy attachments to our views and our perceptions of how we think reality should be? And this is difficult. So I've, for me at least, tried to find a balance in observing life as it arises and also recognizing the role that I play, the interaction I play in life as it arises, and seeing where I can engage to try to impact things, the world, people, myself, in a positive manner, but at the same time trying to observe it and not force things. And so it's a balance to observe life as it is, but also engage with life as it is. And it's just this endless dance. So learning to see things as they are is very different from seeing things how we want to see them or how we want them to be. And the practice of non-attachment and letting go of some of these fixed ideas of how we think things should be. When we set some of those down, we tend to set down a lot of the anger and pain and whatever emotional stuff we've been carrying for a very long time. So the sooner we learn to set that down, the easier we can breathe, the easier we can be with life, and the less we're triggered by all the difficulty and people and places and things that cause us a lot of pain. Because ultimately it's our reaction to these people and places and things that are causing our pain. So we'll take a few moments here at the end if anybody has any thoughts or questions or anything they want to share before we wrap up. Yeah.
I was thinking about what you said about the disciple of the Buddha holding up the flower,
Yeah.
and it seems like maybe he was just the flower, just as like peace.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Everything is just being. That's it. Just being. There's no label for it. There's no. Just, it is what it is.
For sure. Thank you.
Gate, Karagate, Karasangate, Bodhisattva.
Yes, sir. That's the end of, for those who don't know, it is the Heart Sutra. Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha, which is gone, gone, gone beyond, all hail, just gone. And that's, whatever that is whatever it is, right? Yeah, if you aren't familiar with the Heart Sutra, just as a closing thought, I recommend Google it, read it. Don't try to understand it. Don't try to figure it out. If anything, it's just going to confuse you for a few years. And then after you're no longer confused by it, you won't understand it, but at least you won't be confused by it. So, it's really, I'll throw you a little teaser before we wrap up on the Heart Sutra. Again, for those of you who are not familiar with it at all, it comes in what's called the Prajnaparamita, Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. The longer version was the Diamond Sutra, and this is the Heart Sutra, which is a condensed version. Super short. I mean, you could literally read it in like 60 seconds, 90 seconds if you read slowly. And it's one of the most commonly recited Buddhist sutras around the world. Literally millions of people, like right now at this moment, are chanting the sutra. Mahayana tradition, very often at the start of any formal ritual practice, they would recite the Heart Sutra at the beginning and or at the end to kind of open and close. Think of it as like an opening act, for a rock band or something like that. And the Heart Sutra, in essence, all of the Buddhist teachings talk about Four Noble Truths. It's the first thing the Buddha taught. Life is filled with dukkha, filled with suffering. Second noble truth is the cause. The cause of suffering is greed, anger, ignorance. So we practice generosity, compassion, and wisdom to overcome greed, anger, ignorance. The third noble truth is the cessation of suffering. That is the ending. Nirvana, liberation, freedom from suffering. Yay, that's the good news. And the fourth is the Eightfold Path. And this, in essence, is the practice the Buddha laid out to live our lives by. 8 steps. That's all you gotta do. 8 things. Like, how hard can it be? We suffer our whole lives, and if all we would do is these 8 things, right? And it's looking at having the correct views and thoughts and speech and action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. Again, all of that's on Google for free. Just stay on the first 2 pages and you're good to go. And then the Heart Sutra comes along and says, there is no suffering. There is no cause of suffering. There is no cessation of suffering. And there is no path. There is no wisdom or any attainment whatsoever. So, with that, I appreciate y'all being here. Always an honor to fill in for all those Monday night Zen people. And thanks for being here. So we'll close with a transfer of merit. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. Just a few quick announcements before you all head out, buy flowers and study the Heart Sutra. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms for those who show up and hopefully help make it make some sense. Every night we have different practices going on, different folks leading from a different Buddhist tradition. Every Thursday at 5 o'clock we do a food redistribution program. I still think it's one of the best things around here. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on the street every night. So anytime you think your life sucks and you're just like having the worst time, go feed people who are right now trying to find a place on the sidewalk to sleep. And I always say it's nice to feed them, but the program probably benefits those who do it as much, if not more, than those who receive from it. So again, when your life sucks, go feed people who are sleeping on the street, and it'll really shift your view of your day. Other than that, thanks for being here. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you all soon. Oh, and if you could stick around, yeah, thanks, Michael. Just lock up the windows here. Appreciate it. If anyone can help.